Welcome to the Clash KO podcast. I'm Colton Cruz.
I'm Wyatt Garland.
Welcome to the podcast where we analyze anime
and punch things with our mouths.
Today's topic is mature anime characters. We're talking about the old guys and gals.
Yeah, some of us with some history. But before we dive into this time bomb, if your ears get full, we've got some prime eye juice over at our YouTube channel, Clash KO. So check that out. But for right now, we're going to be talking about, some of just the classic sensei characters. Just really any character that has, some time on their hands. Just a real built character. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, what got us kind of thinking about it was we just saw the Reinhardt Overwatch short. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because, obviously, the story in Overwatch is already set in place. There was a war. I mean, they even have the stage where, he fought in a battle on. Right. And that, he's old and he's battle-scarred and he's worn. And even Reinhardt's just character design in the game is he's someone with a big shield that protects other people.
Right. He's already got that fatherly sort of
and
vibe.
So you see where the character is now. So when they go back in time, they do the flashback kind of cinematic. And they do, basically the cinematic is why does Reinhardt tick like such a team player and, have all of these scars? And it answers those questions and it deepens your understanding of everything he does in the present and has been doing, kind of in the canon up to that point anyway.
Yeah. And it's so funny because, of course, I have less perspective of Overwatch than you do. But what is so, because calling it simplistic is an insult to the effect that it has. Because when you have an older character like that and you go back to their past, one of the common things to do is they were, back when they were young, they were rash.
Yeah, they were fresh and rash is because rash is synonymous with young. I mean, that's how we understand the word.
Exactly. And when you get that, and so sometimes when you get a character like, say, Reinhardt, who's very, team player now, obviously we go back and we see a Reinhardt that's the complete opposite.
Yeah, hot-headed, prideful.
Yeah. And he doesn't fight with the helmet on, like I saw that. He's got to have his blonde hair.
He's got his buddies. He's ruffling.
Very vain.
That's very vain. And you see his character grow into someone who has to care about his teammates through, of course, deep tragedy.
Exactly. And that's gonna happen.
Yeah. And the thing is that gives such perspective to him now being a mentor character in the present that it's such an interesting just archetype, and it made us think of a lot of other archetypes.
Right. And the thing about it is because it's so I said simple, and it's really just the best part with an older character in any archetype or in any sort of situation is that you can always do that. It seems easy, right, to just say when I was young and I was rash, and now I'm old and I've learned. It seems like the easiest solution to do with an older character.
Yeah,
but it's just something that it's not easy, it's almost necessary.
Well, and
it's just so, it's just so, you can do it, and you can do more things. It's the stock standard thing to do, and it feels a little repeated sometimes, but it never loses effect, because it's important to have happen. Every character goes through, every single character person goes through a scenario where they think they're on top of the world, and they have to come crashing down. That's what makes the character, how they come crashing down. Not if they don't or if they do, because that's just always going to happen. That's what happens with age. And that's what we're really talking about.
Right, and it's interesting to think, because kind of going off that point, if you take, Naruto, and you condense that down to, one flashback of emotion, that's kind of what we're getting to, is, an older character allows you to take, all of the main character's story that's going on and be we're gonna spend 15 minutes going through how their mentor went through that.
Right. And it's so funny when you get to see something like that, because it's why are you watching a shonen story when you can describe an entire shonen story in an old character's flashback? And you're watching this shonen story because that's the one that you're relating to. You're relating to the young struggle, but it's so important to know that every older character had the same type of scenario and the same sort of scenario and same situation. And then, there are special cases, and we'll get into a couple of those, characters that avoid that confrontation.
There are kind of different ways to, obviously it's been turned on its head. It's, we're talking about story creativity here.
Right.
But it's just so interesting that you can just like boil something down that quick. So like the first anime character that came to mind when I was thinking about this is one we talked about that like it seemed like the writers even like fell for it. If you remember a review of ReZero starting over from nothing. From nada.
Back in the day.
They have this like whole queen like or princess character that they're gonna do like obviously like a whole arc on.
They give her a special weapon.
But
She's
they, like,
in a leadership position.
But they introduce her like butler character who's this old man. It's like, yeah, he used to be the best swordsman ever. And clearly, like, just through, like, making the episodes...
There is no use to an anime. It's always still
So, like, of course, he's still, fantastic. And so, like, that really fits the shonen thing of, like, you get to see this old... Like, I mean, he is Fuhrer Bradley. He's got the eye patch at, like, practically everything.
It's the beard, really, that doesn't.
And so he's flying around with, like, swords and stuff. But it's so interesting because, like, the writers clearly fell in love with this character and, like... Oh, yeah, we weren't going to make 3 episodes about this guy, but, like, that's what we did, and that's what everybody loves the most about this series.
That's what they wanted.
I mean, besides, like, the trash, like, Rem, like, like, of course.
That's why I watch it.
But, yeah, like, his basic story is, like, he's teaching, again, he's set in a sensei role, he's teaching the main character, he's clearly got a lot of experience, but, like, they pit his backstory on, like, they're trying to, they're Ahabbing it, they're trying to kill the white whale. And
literally.
Wilhelm's like, yeah, it took my wife. And they go into this just ridiculous flashback.
3 episodes.
Like, 3 episodes of like, we get pieces of his flashback at a time. It's like, oh no, yeah, the white whale killed my wife. My wife used to be the best swordsman in the world before me. And like, it just evolves out of this like, oh yeah, he was like young and fresh and like, his wife was better than him, and then, like, that taught him, like, a lot of perspective about the world, and, like, now he's, like, the best swordsman, and, like, but, like, has this unaccomplished goal that he's, like, the main character, he's, like, teaching to, like, take down. And so, like, it just wraps all of the, like, it adds a fight where, like, we have the main characters, like, the main character just has a pretty plain banana objective of, like...
I want to go on a date!
I've got to kill the whale. And, like, it adds all of this emotional tragedy and weight to, like, what's happening at the time. And I would say the same kind of thing happens with, the sensei character in Yu Yu Hakusho. That same kind of thing.
Well, Genkai. Let's get into Genkai. Before we depart from the Wilhelm thing, what I will say is, what happens a lot with the sensei character, or the older character, especially what happens a lot with the old man character, is, you're saying they fall in love with it. Because there is a lot of charisma in a character with history. But talk about charisma. Nothing displays charisma better than attitude. And what Wilhelm has is his sort of like stoic potential, his ability to look into the way that the main character ReZero is living his life and have a perspective on it always, because he has a wealth of experience. So he's a very opinionated, like stoic, powerful character. Meanwhile, Genkai is just she's brimming with humor because of her she does not give a shit. She is like so.
She plays more of that kind of turning it on its head as like, yeah, the sensei doesn't really have like they have a perspective of like the scale of the world and like what's at stake, but they really trivialize it.
Oh yeah.
Which is it's a different facet of maturity and old age. Like we say maturity, but it is immaturity. But like immaturity, like it really highlights that immaturity also is like a big characteristic of old age.
And it's because it's so interesting because Genkai is essentially more of Yusuke than Yusuke even is now. Yusuke is like a punk. But Genkai's like smoking. She doesn't care. The fate of the world's just that she's the most powerful. Never for a second does she express anything than like a disgust at other people. Like, oh, look at this little punk. Like back when I was his age, I could whoop this and that. She never lost that. But part of Genkai is the tragedy of like her perceived failures and the way that she wanted things to work out and her perceived loss of beauty and all these things that have kind of really made her a very bitter person.
Which was something I was going to bring up. A huge part of the archetype of these like mature characters is the reason they aren't the main character is because they have some kind of piece of baggage or like thing that they're dealing with that they couldn't deal with that they're vicariously dumping on the main character.
No more specific than Toguro in Yu Yu Hakusho. Toguro is the issue that became born of Genkai's like feelings, her relationship with Toguro that never got resolved in the right way, how she blames herself for not being able to save Toguro and having to deal with Toguro now when she's old. And Toguro's also interesting because we forget that he is as old as Genkai.
Yes.
Just decided to jump into the deal. And the deal is something that, you know, it's obvious and it comes up a lot. It's that classic, you know, oh, do you want immortality or not? And it's that that old guy thing of just being like, no, I want to be young forever, which is an immature position to take.
Right.
And is always the negative, and it makes sense, you know. But really, Toguro, big T guy. They're both pretty tall. It makes them they both have the same haircut. Let's be real. But he's really wrestling with his own guilt and deciding that he needs to be a certain way forever because of it. So his perspective of time is warped.
He's latched on to his success and like...
Well, he doesn't want to age.
Well, exactly. Well,
and
his vice is that he's not letting go of mistakes
Yes.
and stuff that he made.
Yes.
Whereas Genkai, like, has obviously kind of let mortality set in.
Yeah, and sort of gotten some perspective from it, because lack of perspective, at the end of the day, leads to a lack of power. And that's something, again and again, that's described. An interesting character, Fullmetal Alchemist, has got a lot of old characters. In fact,
it does, yeah.
One of the Fuhrer Bradley, very powerful character, very impactful character, and definitely a very well depicted character because the manga artist has admitted she loves drawing old men.
Oh yeah.
She's like, no, I like drawing old dudes. Like that's so she draws a lot of Fuhrer Bradley. But what's your position? He's an interesting one. It's kind of in the middle there because obviously he's the villain.
But so he's a villain and he's set up as like, you know, kind of obviously a patriarch of like the society and everything.
Now he's Pride, right? I forget. Or is because that's the thing in the manga and the original anime they're different. So I'm really showing my weakness here. But talk about what you have. I'll double check.
All right. So like the thing I was gonna bring up in Fullmetal Alchemist, just to like kind of back up a second, their teacher, I feel like hits kind of like our classic trope of it's someone with a huge tragedy. They've lost like being at a peak power level that the main protagonist is moving to, and they've got a horrifying deep tragedy.
Yeah.
He knows that his teacher did human transmutation at some point, and the audience gets to know like what exactly that was. But Ed and Alphonse don't know like what the horrible tragedy that transpired was.
Right.
And they kind of just respect it at a distance.
And it's interesting because they technically both share the same pain, but they don't talk about it.
They have the same grief point.
The loss of family is, I mean, it's Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. I mean, it's Fullmetal Alchemist. It's all about family. It's all about losing and gaining it and trying to bring back pieces of broken family. And no one's family is more broken than their sensei's because she couldn't start one, that whole deal. So
exactly, and it's a complete reflection of the main character as well,
right?
Which is another kind of part here. It doesn't always work. Like, obviously, I would say Wilhelm doesn't really reflect like the main character in ReZero, but in a lot of sensei relationships they will.
Yeah, and she's definitely very interesting because she has this perspective that she wants to impart on the kids. But the reason that she can only express it through sort of anger or frustration is because she knows of their pain, but she doesn't know how specific it is. Like, she wants to be part of it, and in a way she is their mother, but in a way she tells herself she can't be a mother,
right? And
she doesn't understand that relationship because she hasn't ever been a mother. And then these kids have had a mother, so they do understand. So when they push back to her, there's just this, it speaks to the difficulty of their relationship. And that's why it works and why their relationship feels impactful.
And that's what amplifies and emphasizes their relationship. It's not like she has a separate tragedy that like we just like put out in the open, and it's like, yeah, you need to go finish like what I started. It's kind of
there's no baggage. It's a scenario.
It's all just kind of it's like they're in the attempted human transmutation club like together, and they just sit around at their anonymous meeting and kind of just like, man, like, is that shitty?
Woo! All right, so I looked it up. Bradley, this is why I give it. Bradley is Pride in the 2003 anime, but he is technically
the one that I
like
pray to.
Hands up! I remember that one. That was the first time I ever saw. But no, he is technically Wrath. Which
I thought
sense.
Wrath. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and he's got the perfect eye. And I guess I'm just trying to really think about, because his whole end comes from just sort of like an unwillingness to let go of ambition, you know, like
kind of, yeah. I mean, like I feel like in like the kind of mature sense, like in the same way that Toguro, he kind of had to though. Like he was made to be.
Yeah, well, he's a special case.
Well, he's a special case, but like he's an old man to like and is the patriarch of like the society he runs. But like in the Homunculus Club, he's the youngest, like newest one.
So his perspective.
Yeah, so his perspective's really weird, and like his life was taken away from him by, I mean, what we call the ultimate patriarch father. So I think he's really at odds with like kind of rolling around in like kind of in between the two. It's interesting. Yeah.
His perspective is interesting, especially when his son like talks back to him and all that stuff. Like he's just like it's just really But his whole I'd say his pride is really his just ability to be so perfect. Like I think one of my favorite.
I think he's got the stoic on lock.
Oh yeah, he's just 100%. I mean, some of the funniest. What is it like when they blew up the train to kill him? And look, you're alive. He's like, yeah. When the train exploded, there were pieces of debris in midair, and I just walked through them. Like that's what. Like the path was there. He's just it's insane. Like I mean, and he's interesting. But what's really interesting about that type of aged character is that he doesn't let go. I mean, he is the whole point of his wrath is that he's like, nope, I'm always just on and I'm burning.
Well, like, nothing is his fault. Like, it's very much like, no, he, at every opportunity, put himself in the position where he met whatever odds he was supposed to. And I think that, that's where, like, you know, the wrath comes in on it. It's like, no, it's unfair to this character what happened to him.
But he just doesn't, and his ability is to fight that. Yeah, his ability is to fight that, which is interesting. But it really speaks to, I mean, it's a really classic anime trope to have that badass old man who's still kicking. He doesn't even. It's like, oh, you actually. And the thing is, it's such a simple metaphor, but it really does read true when you get a really muscular or really like fit old guy who's like, no. Actually, you just get stronger when you get older. Like, you get weaker, but you get stronger, and it's that metaphor.
It is it's a metaphor for, like, where they're at. Just on FMA still.
Yeah, no.
Because it's full of just great characters. I kind of wanted to flip to, like, an opposite, or a different kind of character. I always thought of Hughes as kind of, like, a really good...
Oh, yeah.
Kind of, like... pseudo like father, like no, he's definitely not like he's more like an uncle like character to like Ed, but like
to Ed, but he is a father.
But like he is like a father character, and I think that like goes to the other side of like he's a mature character who is embraced by also like mortality. Like he is fragile.
Yeah, well,
obviously.
Well, what's so interesting about Hughes, and I remember like I remember being shamed more than any other experience that I forced someone to view via anime was Hughes's scenario. I had my friends crying to me over the phone.
I cried the first time I watched it.
Of course, it's brutal. Yeah. It's brutal, and the whole point of it is because Hughes is a older male character. Like he's got the beard and stuff, and he acts as a father figure.
Family. He's got a daughter.
He unflinchingly embarrasses himself to express his love to other characters that are also even his age. Yeah. He has no filter. He's
100% committed to being a dad.
Yeah, like, and that sort of, and I mean, it's so funny because like anime dad isn't. I'm sure there are other anime that have an example.
Shonen anime is so full of absent dads.
Yes,
that like it's really refreshing.
Media written by men is full of absent fathers.
Can't have dad in the way.
Yeah, there's plenty of that. Plenty of those daddy issues there. But him just seeing this really. And obviously, him
FMA being written by a woman too, I think, like speaks to why there are so many father figure type characters. Like
a range of father figures because she probably didn't have the sort of ego that needed to explore one type.
Well, and like, I mean, their dad is the absent father. Like, she has that exact
it's there,
worn out trope in the series. But like, well, she puts Ed in a situation where, like, without a father, he would find other father figures to like fill in.
And that's good
for his development.
Was there any other? I mean,
well, just kind of on like kind of the timid, fragile old man. Like, I wanted to kind of touch on like, do you remember Gantz? Do you remember the old man in Gantz?
Oh my god!
It was just like it's just some old. It's so tragic.
Yes!
That, like, so Gantz, if you don't know Gantz, like in the basic scenario, it's like an alien or like a technologically advanced sphere is stealing people to fight aliens to the death.
Dead people.
Yeah, dead or dying people, to steal them and use them to fight aliens in basically a game show. Mm-hmm. And like they're just random. So like, but one of the characters is just an old ass pension like man.
But the thing is, I mean, he is short, bent over.
Oh yeah, he's not a powerful, wise, or skilled or
and the thing is,
old man.
he is afraid all the
he's-
time, and he will at all costs put himself last to even further really selfish and horrible characters like that shitty brat,
I mean,
because they're the youth. He's like, oh,
exactly,
the youth.
yeah, like he is this like synthesization of this like Japanese idea of like old people like sweeping up the subway, like motai nai, like it's 100% that, and it's just so interesting to see like
it's beautiful and stoic, because seeing a character that has evolved to a state where they are completely untethered by their ego, like Hughes, is interesting, because those are real characters. You don't feel that you can read that guy. You know what I mean? The same way you can read other characters in, say, an anime because they're so mainlined. This character is like, no, I don't have any ambition, or like a demon's not gonna trick me. You know what I mean? Like they are.
Right.
They're just a character.
Well, and like the thing is, I think it really speaks to like he always knows what's at stake. He knows that like
that awareness.
Someone dying, even if it's the shithole in Gantz, like just is tragic and matters.
And that's the thing. That gives you the perspective that ties you into a real world with characters that aren't just, bloody knuckled fighters who are gonna die with honor like Reinhardt.
The old man, full of piss and vinegar is one thing, but like the responsible old man trope is kind of another, dimension to this as well. Yeah. And that's what gets me into like, talking about like Grandpa Joestar. And it's interesting because in that one we kind of have the opposite thing with the flashback. We saw his entire like story, and then we see him as like a mentor. A mentor, a leader type character.
This is the best part about Grandpa Joestar. Honestly, if it was a regular shonen anime, you wouldn't even have needed him. Jotaro would have been like, Dio's gonna get my mom, well, I'm gonna go to Egypt and I'm gonna bring my best buddies. But no, it's a family thing.
Yeah, well,
does he do anything, really? I mean, he helps.
Yeah, he helps, but like he's mostly just there to lead the team.
Yeah, and he gets, what you were saying once, he even gets put in the damsel in distress scenario a couple times.
It is really good the way that it's like, no, like, Grandpa Joestar's kind of the liability power-wise on the team. Absolutely. Completely. They even really just don't even let him use Hamon or anything from the first series.
So what is it?
To my great chagrin,
For sure. He should have gotten a couple more punches in. He did get to defeat the ultimate being, though, so we're already topped out on him, to be fair. But yeah, you get that perspective with Grandpa Joestar, but one of my favorite scenes has got to be where, like, he's got the tricks up his sleeves when he's doing the gambling, but what really got me is when Dio's about to chomp on him, he's like, hey, wait a minute, and he wrapped his stand-in Hamon around his neck. Like, he's like, what, me? What? Like, and Dio's like, you motherfucker.
That's the thing, he's got that, like, trickster thing, but they do throw him some, like...
He's wily.
Some aged characteristics where it's like, I love the, like, it's in, like, the first episode where he's like, man, like, Japanese tea sucks. Only instant coffee. Yeah, like, and it's like, that is just an old man, like...
And he drinks it, and he's like, oh, it tastes terrible. But that's the thing. For him, he's old enough to have come to the conclusion that he's like, no, when I want to wake up, I just drink this crap because it's fastest. But like, he doesn't, that's his solution.
It's just inconsistent, too, which is just, it's a fun, silly old man
he's an idiot.
We get that, like, full dimensionality.
And the best part about it is you get that third push in Diamond is Unbreakable, where you see him completely dilapidated.
You see the tragedy set in.
Yeah, where he's a different person. And
I mean, because let's be real, in Stardust Crusaders, he's still jacked.
Oh, yeah, AF. Like, there's several scenarios where he throws some bows, but it's just so crazy to think about it when you get a character and you let them rise and you let them fall all the way. But Grandpa Joestar is one of the first characters that I've seen a really standard shonen visualization of in Battle Tendency, and then you see other versions of him where there's a different voice actor for him in the second two parts. He is a different character in the second two parts. And the way that these stories are written, like, he doesn't have too many ties. He doesn't say his same catchphrase or things like that.
They are different books or different series.
Completely, fundamentally never am I... like, thinking he's a different character. He always proves he's Grandpa Joestar, and you're always like, that's him. And I mean, like, even in different characters' interpretations on it is very cool. Like, when Josuke's like, oh, he's the type of person that gets really excited when he's like complimented. Like he has that perception of him later on, and there's God with the scene where he buys the baby supplies,
the baby supplies.
and he's just like, well, they're just baby supplies. It shouldn't cost much money. It's like, what the hell, dude? Like, his lack of perspective, his idiocy transcends.
Which I think really reflects, like, I mean, he buys a goddamn submarine in Stardust Crusaders. Like, it is consistent, like you're saying.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's consistent, but inconsistent.
It's consistent, and like again, the beautiful, like, super rare thing about it is we see it completely linearly. Like, we're not getting flashbacks.
No.
Never in Stardust Crusaders did we get a flashback of what what Grandpa Joestar was
because
like.
we saw that.
Exactly, and that's so interesting.
Yeah,
like,
the series dived in, told you what that character was, and showed you. Aging characters, for me, it's a big deal. I mean, I really like it. We grew up in the generation that introduced the time skip. I mean, there were other series with time skips or flashbacks. Ronin Kenshin is one, and we'll get to that too.
Kind of,
but the idea that characters get older physically is something that is always going to be exciting. I mean, it's just important. And yeah, speaking about characters going down, we're gonna talk about characters that keep it up. Like, I really liked White Fang from One Punch Man.
Oh yeah.
He's talking about someone piss and vinegar.
He's in that same realm of like still wily and full of things.
My God.
And that's the thing. It's interesting. They again kind of a different dimension to it. He sees the main character do something. He's like, man, I gotta get with it. Like he doesn't like that he's getting old, but he's not like Toguro where he's like clinging to something. He's like, no, I've still got some in me. Like I can still move.
What really switched the grip on the character for me is when he first got hit by that guy. What was it? He was fighting the aliens, and they were all sort of like dealing with them. And then the alien had the solution. Oh, what am I doing? These guys are all individually weak as hell. I just need to take them out one by one. And he just lands a hit on White Fang, and White Fang's like, going through a couple buildings now. But then like later he just like gets up and he does the whole like, okay, all right, the back. Now I feel loose.
Good.
I'm warmed up. I know what's happening.
Which is a good reveal. It's very One Punch Man. Kind of just rolling on like, kind of the more responsible and like, powerful. Then like I want to talk about All Might real quick. You talk about like something super modern. I mean, All Might is exactly that character. I mean, he's got we get the flashbacks to the mentor he lost. He's trying to live up to an expectation. He reached a peak, but now he's falling and he has to pass on that baggage to Deku.
Yeah, and we hear it. It's not necessarily, we don't feel like this is All Might's, what is it? We don't feel, like this is, when All Might reaches his peak and reaches this new form, this new state that he is, we don't at all lose the sense of who he is. We are never...
Yeah, he's still the same person, he just is losing ability.
Yeah, and one of the fun things that I liked about it is even, like, when he loses some of his ability, it's like, no, the ability is still technically there. It's his, it's literally ineffective as age. Like, he's like, no, it's All Might. He could still throw one at you if he needed to. But it's like, is it going to be useful? Where is he putting his strength? His strength changes. You know what I mean? Like, at first, he is the first line of defense. If he needs to put his body on the line, he can do it. But now it's like, no, I need to offer my experience now.
And I think it's super. Yeah, again, we see that like he made the decision to become a teacher because of it. But I think it's also interesting, kind of how he like. I mean, obviously the audience, we see like his regret in having to pass this to Deku, but like that is just like, I think it's one of the best portrayals, even of the examples we've gone through, of like, we see that he's like, man, I feel so shitty having to pass this on to like, or pass this baggage down the line.
This burden.
Exactly.
But the thing is,
it's very like Naruto Jiraiya like has that same kind of arc like really quickly.
Yeah. No, and it's good because it's the smart thing, and that's always interesting when you have to see a character make not just the hard decision but the smart decision, because a lot of times we go through the decision that requires that it's the most difficult, because that's the most exciting to observe in a story, the one where the most trial is apparent, because that's what drives the story. But the smartest decision is often like, it's just, that's what an older character would do.
Right, because it's inevitable for All Might that he has to do it now.
And another example of an older character that does a really smart thing is what is it? It's from Hunter x Hunter. What's his name? The ear guy.
Oh, Netero.
And I will never, Netero just like, Oh, he's got
He
that.
is the piss and vinegar old man.
Yes.
Holy
like, move
shit.
over, White Fang. That guy is, when he fights the Ant King, which is really just a metaphor
When he beats the Ant
Yeah,
King.
when he beats the Ant King. It's just such a perfect example of, like, no, this is age and intelligence versus hyper youth. I mean, that's Ant King's like what, 2 days old or whatever.
Yeah,
like he's
yeah.
just like this Neo thing, but he is pure power. And then Nero is all technique, but then it evolves past technique with
That's
his
the thing.
victory.
We see an example of the man who is the pinnacle of technique,
Yes.
and he still is like, through his age, like not only has he like honed himself to be the perfect like fighter, he is like, no, and if I can't win, I'm gonna blow it up because
Oh,
I am an
God.
old man and I know what
Yeah.
a limit is. Like,
Exactly.
Miriam did not understand what a limit is, and that's why he lost.
Exactly, and there was nothing more fulfilling than seeing him get that badass shonen like youth moment of being like, I had this in the bag the whole
Right.
time.
It's a very kind of like Sherlock Holmes style
Yeah.
thing.
It's just, don't underestimate humans. It's so perfect. It's very
The last one I wanted to hit real quick was a series that kind of uses the old man as the main character, and that would be like Rurouni Kenshin. Like you said. I mean, technically, Kenshin's story, like Kenshin's
Kenshin's old.
shonen
How-
story,
he's pretty old.
He's supposed to be 30
Yeah.
in the manga, but the idea is like, no, he had his shonen series already,
Right.
and the Rurouni Kenshin is about him as an old man, kind of dealing with how the world has changed. It's his second tragedy. Obviously, the middle of the manga is a flashback, and we get his original shonen story.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. Like, no, there are plenty of creative ways to kind of use these characters for any role, really. And so, yeah, I mean, that's our 30 minutes about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, these characters are important, obviously, and they just add perspective, and that's such an important thing. Whether it's the super like aware character doesn't have anything invested in it except the world around it, like the Gantz guy, or it's the White Fang who wants to get in there and wrestle with the young characters. Older characters and characters who have history are essential to creating a story where the characters who are struggling feel like they're doing something important, Because awareness of an older figure is how, you prove that what you're doing is important in the first place.
It's really hard to get perspective without a character like this in the room, because you don't without. I mean, time skips obviously has become sort of a way around this.
Yeah.
In a way that we get to see Naruto as a young boy and as like a more responsible kind of young adult. But like an old man characters like in FMA, I mean, we have a multitude. They're showing Edward and Alphonse different stages of adulthood in real time, which is just super.
Right.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, I know, and you need that, and that's a variety, and that is an essential part of a good story. I mean, there's just, like you were saying. I mean, Star Wars uses it. Every story uses it. You gotta have your old characters. All right, guys. I think that's gonna be a KO.
That's a KO.
Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you want us to talk about some more old guys.
Old guys. Who's your favorite old guy?
Yeah. There's got to be one. All right. Comment your favorite badass old dude.